I wanted to let folks know that Jen was the first female to graduate from the King Ranch Institute of Ranch Management, and she oversees the Flying Diamond Ranch's grazing plan. And for those of you that don't know, the Flying Diamond, it is a fifth generation family owned and operated commercial cattle ranch located in eastern Colorado. They've been going since 1907, and they won the National Cattlemen's Beef Association's Environmental Stewardship Award in 2017. So I'm looking forward to hearing her presentation.
Jen, we can't hear you quite yet, but we can see your screen. And still having a little bit of trouble hearing you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
There you go.
Okay, awesome. Sorry about that. Okay, can you see a picture of a bunch of cows and people on horses?
Sure can, looks great.
Okay. So I feel very fortunate to be the last producer giving a spotlight. I thought the three who went before me did a great job, and it gave me a chance to add some stuff to my slides. So I'm definitely cheating a little bit. But to kind of lay the groundwork for where our operation is located, Kit Carson is on kind of the far eastern side of Colorado, kind of dead center north to south, right in the heart of the Great Plains. Low 14, 15 inch annual rainfall, and drought is a very regular occurrence for us. We have been there since 1907. This is my great-great-grandfather, Charlie Collins. And we currently have a commercial cow-calf, yearling, and seed stock. I mentioned we sell some branded beef, and just started doing some direct-to-consumer beef. Kind of some high notes of family history of and why I think it relates to soil health is kind of a history of very business-minded people. Both my great-great-grandfather and great-grandfather served in state legislature and for various cattlemen's organization. My grandma also very involved in the beef industry her entire life. My grandpa came from no ranching background, but with a heavy business background, which has been instilled into the family. And this is kind of the offspring of my grandma, the matriarch. And then this is my family. I think last summer, there are now 8 grandkids. So, you know, a strong sense of family connected to this ranch, and a strong sense of needing it to be a profitable business, a sustainable business, so that you know, we can pass it down to additional generations. The ecology is dominated almost 100% by shortgrass and sand sage prairie. This is a couple of years ago when it was very, very green. And we do have on various properties, you know, 10, 15 miles of riparian area. This particular one is called the Big Sandy Creek, which runs through our headquarters. It's named very well. It runs, you know, maybe once every 7 years, but it is a highly productive area of the ranch compared to some of our other areas. This is a unit that does not, it's not sandy, it's almost entirely loamy. And this is kind of in the heart of the beginning of the drought last year. This was taken the morning we branded at the end of June, which should be, you know, one of our wettest weeks or greenest weeks of the year. And so this is just a demonstration of how our environment fluctuates, you know, very, very dependent on rainfall. To get into kind of soil health and how we look at it, I'm going to take a step back and kind of tell you about our philosophy, which is very much grounded in holism or holistic thinking. Lance touched on this and encouraged everybody to look in it. My dad, just kind of by chance in the late 80s, attended a workshop by Alan Savory, kind of at the very beginning of his journey throughout the United States. And it really made an impression on him. And so I, am very grateful to have grown up with kind of that philosophy dictating our ranch practices. And kind of how we very simply look at it is everything is connected. You can't think about, the land or people or business separately. They all interact and impact each other. Another thing that we kind of hammer home in the family is to always be adaptable, because things are always changing, and you have to change what your reaction is over time. And a simple thing is drought impacts what you can do in any given year, but so does skill sets, so does how many people are involved, so do your enterprises. And a thing that we focus on when it comes to the land, which impacts everything else, is if any of you know or knew Dale Lassiter, the Lassiter family really kind of hammered home the statement, nature is smart as hell. That was kind of, that guided their operation, and they had a great impact on our operation. And what that means to us is that don't try to fight what nature is doing. You fit into what nature is telling you to do, and in the end, you're happier and the ranch is happier. Practically, what this means is to be very low input, and put this picture up of us feeding. We feed very little supplemental feed, principally because we're very cheap and feed is expensive. So, this is right before calving. We will do a little bit of supplemental feeding before we start calving on May 1, but we are designing things so that we do not have to do this. We also strongly believe in fitting our genetics to our environment. And what that plays out at is we are very hard on our cattle. They must have a healthy calf starting at age 2 every year, again, with very little inputs. And these happen to be a picture of all black cattle. We have all different colors of cattle. We don't really care. What we care about is, are they productive in our environment without a lot of help? A key part of our philosophy is matching our operation to our resources. And we calve, very late in the year, probably compared to most ranchers in the area. I looked at the date on this picture when I added it, and May 27th is still calving for us. These are brand new babies, and you can see that it's still not quite green in eastern Colorado, and we're trying to match, when our cattle need the most nutrients to when those nutrients are available. So, this drives a lot of, don't feed a lot of supplemental hay or feed. Successes in our program, I think we would all point to intensive grazing. And I know everybody has thrown out a lot of, holistic grazing, management intensive grazing, rotational grazing, whatever you want to call it. That's what we do. When we moved back to the ranch in 1990, it was a very conventional system. This particular unit might have had 4 pastures, and we split it up, used NRCS EQIP funding to put in additional tanks to allow us to do that. Last year was our first year of doing what I will call even more intensive grazing. We used polywire fencing to split our half section pastures into 3 or 4 kind of mini paddocks, and rigged up a 4-wheeler to do that. And you can see a fence line shot there. And, we implemented this for the first time ever in a pretty catastrophic drought year. And it wasn't magic. It's not like we're the only ranch that now has grass. I do think it let us stretch the resource more than we would have otherwise. The other success is, we do have a system for tracking our grazing, and we are able to take, that data and turn it into actionable information. The result is essentially heat maps of, how intensely we grazed a unit last year, so that we can design our grazing for this year, and try not to hit the same pasture at the same time of year, try to rotate everything so that different species of grass are getting breaks in different years at different times. Kind of a principle of diversity going on there. We have also implemented our kind of rotational grazing in other areas. We have several leases that we operate. This one is up in the Wet Mountain Valley. We're leasing it from a relative of ours. These used to be hay fields, and we've converted them 100% to grazing over the last 2 years with some very intensive practices. Again, and I mentioned this in our breakout room, we, since 2011, which some of you might remember, that terrible time period when it was so dry, we began that year taking all of our animals to corn stalks near us in eastern Colorado and in Nebraska and Kansas over the winter. And this picture might not look beautiful. There is a lot of nutrient value in those corn stalks, and we're also, providing another income stream to that farmer and providing some fertilizer and hoof action. So it's kind of a symbiotic relationship, and it allows us to rest our home range over the winter, which we're big believers in rest. I also think, and this, it might not seem directly related to soil health, but I do think that over the last probably 4 years, we, and to define we, I am one of 4 children, and it's my parents, and the in-laws are all involved, is formalizing our business plan and really writing things down, and creating standard operating procedures, sticking to those. I think it just allows us to be sharper operators, and allows us to, pay more attention to our land resource. Resources that we have used, I would say the most helpful always has been peers, other ranchers who we think are doing smart things, who, we think are seeing successes. This particular picture is from last summer. We had Jim Garish, who's a kind of grazing guru, out, and we just invited a bunch of neighbor ranchers that we thought would be interested. And some of our employees in day help were there. And we are not afraid to invite ourselves out to see other people's operations if we hear that they're doing something out of the box. We've had other, Jaime Elizondo has been out, just people that we think are kind of pushing the edge of what is possible with grazing, because we know that how much grass we grow over time is pretty much the most important factor for the success of our family business over time. And so whatever we can do to do that better, we invest time and effort into. We're also part of various groups and associations. The family has always kind of put an emphasis on being involved in cattlemen's, Colorado Livestock Association. We are Audubon certified. We've been working with Dusty on that. I'm on the board of the Western Landowners Alliance, kind of a conservation / ranching minded organization, and want to stay involved in it, pay attention to new ideas that are coming out. Also tech resources that we have used, again, to kind of dial in our grazing. We're going back to being cheap. Most of these are completely free. They just take some time to get used to. You asked about what my wish list is, or our wish list is. Going back to knowing what we're doing on the land, I'd love for wide scale satellite monitoring to be able to tell you, bare ground, forage availability, quantity. And I think that will eventually come. I'm just skeptical of a lot of the current range monitoring systems. I think that one would actually be meaningful at scale. We love to know what is going on out on our ranch from a wildlife standpoint. This year, the Bird Conservancy came out and did a bird count, which I thought was really cool. And we just, again, going back to holism, we are not wildlife or plant ID experts. We just feel that when it comes to wildlife species, bird species, plant species, more is better. And more is an indicator that we are doing well at the one thing we can control, which is grazing. So I would like to work with more partner organizations to learn more about what we've got out there. Again, I touched on in my breakout room, how do we create a stronger connection between producers and consumers? And I think ecosystem service markets are a component of that. We very much view that as offense. Beef, I think, is continually bashed in kind of popular culture. It's bad in any number of ways. And, we are constantly thinking about, we know what we're doing is good out here. And how can we, tell that story, not depending on somebody else to tell it for us. How can we get the word out that, what we are doing is, trying to continually improve our land resource, which benefits, society as a whole. That is important to us. And so that's always getting better on that. If you want to know more about us, we have a website that my sister-in-law made. It's very beautiful. There are a couple of videos on there, and you can learn more about what we do, but that is a quick overview.
Great. Well, thanks so much. One question from the chat, and then we can open it up to others, is have you ever used a drone for grass monitoring?
We have not, and I'm not opposed. I just need to learn how to fly a drone.
Other questions for Jen?
Yes, I got one. Jen, what's the history of the land that you're working? Do you mind telling us a little bit about what was there both during and then maybe what was happening before you started farming too?
I assume there was bison here. This land has never been, the heart of our ranch has never been farmed. We have, a tiny amount of dry land farming. And, I say like maybe 200 acres of our entire operation is farming. And, if you've ever been out in Cheyenne County or Eastern Colorado in general, it is nominal dryland farming would dictate a lot of what the farm ground is. And I mean, we feel like we're good at ranching. The whole family has never really farmed. And, there's no irrigation really anywhere near the ranch. So it was we were never tempted to. It's just been pure rangeland always.
Thank you.
A couple more questions in the chat. What is your typical snowpack in the winter, and do you still send cattle away during winter?
Great question. Our typical snowpack would be pretty light, and maybe 2 to 3 weeks of actual snow cover. I mean, that's literally 14 to 21 days over the course of the winter would the ground be snow covered. That said, obviously, we've had some mega blizzards, mega winters before, but they are less common than a pretty dry winter. We do still send our cattle to corn stalks every winter. We did it out of desperation that first year just to avoid selling cattle, but we couldn't keep them droughted out anymore. And it has actually turned out to be a pretty great and important part of our operation, in that we know we can basically rest our land over the winter and run more total cows while maintaining and improving our resource. I think that journey was really hard to get started, in that my dad said he made 100 phone calls to get one farmer who would be willing to take our cattle on their corn stalks. And now I think it's become more and more common, but those aren't particularly relationships we want to give up, because it's nice to kind of have as a backup plan when you need it.
Great. Another question, do you continue to routinely graze cropland or only when necessary?
Every winter. Yeah.
And have you ever measured water infiltration rates or monitored a percentage of soil cover?
Kind of, probably not up to anybody's great standards. And that is something I, really want to get better at. And again, I mentioned earlier, we are part of Country Natural Beef, which is a branded beef program, and they are wanting to roll out kind of a regenerative certification, and part of that would be measuring water infiltration, measuring bare ground, measuring plant diversity, and measuring soil carbon. So it's outcome based, and I want to do that. And we again have the NRCS has been out there many times measuring different things, and we have done that periodically over 20 years. I'd like to get more regimented so that we can see and demonstrate trends.
Okay, great. And 2 questions to end it. Have you used GrassCast to make immediate decisions? Was it helpful if you did? And then what are your prospects for the upcoming grazing season?
Yes, we know about, and I would say have used GrassCast. When I'm planning our grazing, we are looking at the last 12 months of actual rainfall on every unit. And, I keep that precipitation record. So, I know going into 2021, for instance, we are not much better than 50% of average rainfall for the last 12 months. So, we reduce our stocking rate, reduce herd size, look for other leases, might have to sell some, bred cows or something like that. But yes, to the bigger question, the rainfall is absolutely what dictates our actions going forward. And I have used GrassCast for that.
Great. Prospects for the upcoming grazing season, looking good?
Well, they look a lot better than they did because with the blizzard that hit the Front Range, we did get a strong inch of moisture out at the ranch, and it was like a nice slow rain. So it's not going to be the best we've ever had. It's still going to be a lot less than ideal, but it is now way better than it was, a week ago.
Indeed. Great. Well, please join me in giving Jen a round of applause. Thank you so much.
Thank you for letting me speak.